All right, and we are live, everyone. Hi, welcome to the Final Click Marketing Show. I'm Ronnie Soud.
I'm Dania.
And I'm Casey Main.
So this is the Soud Marketing team. We're coming together today. We have a topic that I think we all feel strongly about, maybe in different ways, so it should be a fun discussion. But this is brand is everything today. And I think that has two separate meanings, which is why I wanted to do a long form show about it. In one instance, I think brand is everything means that it's, yes, it is that important if you are a content creator or a business, but also brand is everything, meaning that it's all the things that you're doing as a business and a content creator that help create that experience that you want customers to have. And we kind of want to focus a little bit on both and give you a little bit of a roadmap of the elements that make up a great brand as we see it working with a variety of clients locally and regionally. So I want to thank Dania and Casey for coming along the ride on this one. So we've had a bunch of like inner office discussions about this week. And I think that we all have a unique perspective, I would say. Mm-hmm. So
definitely.
So I want to start off first thing, like, Spitfire. When I say brand, what do you guys think of?
Well, it's funny, like now I think of it as everything, but I don't think I had really even formulated the concept of a personal brand, which I guess technically I am. Like I hadn't even realized that until probably just earlier this year, of just realizing it's the element of social media and just all your communication. Like, I guess just this year I realized how big a brand actually is. Whereas before my answer would have been, oh, it's like your logos and your color scheme and your fonts.
Yeah, for me, I would say, because I'm more of a millennial and growing up with like social media and everything, brands are basically like a person. Like they have their little Instagram account, like your friend has an Instagram account, and it kind of interacts in the same way. So I feel like that's how I associate with a brand in terms of like trustworthiness and all, like you said, it's everything, like every aspect of it is important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very much my view, I would say as well. And so I think a lot of people's view, still today is that it's the logo, it's the color palette, and, they police, using those things in their outbound messaging and on their platforms. But in reality, I feel like it's the core values that bring all of those messages out that really create the brand and thus set the tone for all the other things that the business has to do to differentiate and to be successful too. And so, we kind of hinted on this, but, today I would define brand. There's three different types. There's your classic big brand, Nike, Coke, Starbucks, Ford. There's your personal brands, which I think almost everyone today follows some personal brands. Those are more of your content creators. They could own a business, but your personal brands tend to be content creators up on YouTube and Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and they're influential people that, give us an experience. They either entertain or they educate us. And then there's local brands too. So there's businesses that operate, in a unique way, either within a neighborhood or their local city metro area there. And, specifically today, I think what we're going to talk about and what we have a lot of experience with is what personal brands and content creators and what local businesses can do to create a brand, and so I think it's a great, unique perspective having Casey on here. She has her own podcast, which focuses on personal development. And so this is something that she does on a weekly basis. And so a lot of these elements, she's going to be, kind of coming from the heart from a content creator standpoint. And then, as you guys know, Dania and I, we work with a wide variety of businesses some I would say are brands or are becoming brands, and some that are struggling to figure out how to become a brand too. So we have a lot of hands-on experience with running their messaging and their ads online and what makes them tick too. So now, for the purpose of this, my definition, of a brand, I think, is all of the things that a business does or a content creator does that creates an expectation and builds a reputation. So, we all buy products and services here, and we've all seen ads, we've been influenced by stuff, but we go in and we buy things, and if they don't perform as advertised, it's a bad experience, right?
Right.
And so I would somewhat define brand and brand initiatives as that, and making sure that you come up with not only something that's unique, but something that you can execute on perfectly. So I want to ask Casey, as a content creator, is this something that you put a lot of thought into in terms of being consistent with the type of content that you promise your listeners each week?
Yes, I think I could definitely do a better job at it. And it's been a work in process as I like learn more about branding and what that really means. And I think kind of like I said earlier, for the long time, when I thought, okay, I'm going to start a podcast, I wasn't mentally thinking of it as, oh, this is part of now my personal brand. And so and this is something we talk about a lot, like my unique voice has to come out in that, and like who I am as a person, like that is the brand. The brand isn't a podcast. There's over 1 million podcasts at this point in time. So the actual branding is like what makes mine unique, which is me. And so I've tried to recently think of, okay, what are some ways where I can inject more of my personality and who I am as a person into the product, into the podcast, so that I'm creating that overall brand and that stickiness factor, hopefully, with what brings people back to me is the unique component of who I am, not just the fact that it's a podcast. So I've been thinking about this a lot lately as I've started working with you guys and learned more about just brands in general. So yes, I do, but it's ever evolving.
So we provide advertising, but we also make people do a lot of deep introspective. Because this question, it comes up a lot, in Dania too, before we move on and get into some pillars, Dania, I know you feel it when we work with businesses that have this figured out. Their advertising almost instantly takes off. Whereas the ones who are figuring it out, they tend to tumble along, and they need a lot of our past experience and ideas to sort of help them carve that out.
Right. I feel like a really strong brand that performs well with advertising is when their brand is centered around their strongest selling points, which is, it sounds kind of obvious, but sometimes people, again, just think a brand is just having, a pretty logo and nice colors, but that's not really going to do anything at the end of the day, because there's so many other pretty brands. It's about, do you have the best price point? Do you have like amazing customer service, like you were saying? And I think it's really interesting that you guys brought up personal brands, because I think going into the future, personal brands are going to become stronger than just, like the main brands of a company. Like my biggest example for a personal brand is Elon Musk. Like he has Tesla and like all these amazing SpaceX brands that, would normally be amazing on their own. But I feel like his personal brand outshines those brands because he has such a strong personality and, has his little niches that he's interested in and goes on all the podcasts and stuff. So I feel like, if you're struggling to have a strong selling point as a brand, maybe try taking the personal brand avenue, because that, I think that's really going to be successful in the future.
That's true. In thinking about him too, it's like, I feel like his brand is as an innovator, right? Because he built a car that, had features that hadn't been done before. And then was he the first like non-NASA, non-space program? Like he was the first like private space program creator?
I think so.
I think something like that. Maybe the first private one to send people into outer space. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it was something, something like that.
It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's like, he's always, like everything he does, I feel like he's the first one to do. He has that kind of a mind. Yeah. He's a great, example of a brand. And from a practicality, standpoint, we've all been told by businesses and content creators, that our experience is going to be this. And when it turns out to be something else, we all feel bad. We feel like we've been taken. Mm-hmm. And so, I would like for all of us to get into, I think that there's some pillars that create a great brand. And I'd like to go into these as a discussion. So, what we're going to be diving into is core values, content and marketing strategy, the actual product and service that you offer, your customer support, and your follow-up, And so I feel like those items there, if you take deep introspective of what you can offer and how you can offer it, and you have those sort of tentacles going out from your business or as a content creator too, it will bring you really great success and much differentiation. So.
Well, I think that what Daniel just said kind of reminds me of our conversation about having a company spokesperson, where sometimes I think the market is so crowded now with everything that if your actual product and service maybe isn't enough to, not that it isn't enough, but it's not like a unique kind of voice and brand and feeling, then that's where like maybe having a personal brand associated with somebody within the organization can kind of help make up for that. And I think that maybe speaks to, as people, we're going to feel more attached and relate to and loyal to other people versus products. I think we're always going to be a little bit transient with products. There's always going to be some kind of something new or a new innovation. Whereas like if you can bond with the human component, there's like real sticking power there.
Right.
I totally agree with that.
I agree.
Especially for the younger, the millennials and then Gen Z. Yeah. Gen Z.
Well, I know with my favorite brands, I will go on social media and find who's the designer of the clothing brand, who's the owner, and then I go and follow them because I think they're super cool and interesting. Like, for example, Glossier, I always bring them up as a good marketing example. But I feel like ever since that brand took off, the CEO, Emily Weiss, she's been on Forbes, on the cover of Forbes, and everyone's following her. So I feel like that's a really good example of elevating your brand with using a person.
Yeah, and I think that people like the human story, like the origin story of a company and a brand, because there's always some inspiration in that. So so the company Spanx, Sarah Blakely started that. And when I heard the story, I heard her on a podcast about what she went through to bring that brand to where it is, to the point where she snuck into a department store and moved the location of where the product was being displayed. It made a huge difference. It's I don't know, those they're almost like those hero stories that we attach to in movies and stuff, and it makes you appreciate the product so much more because then what the founder or the inventor or whatever went through to get it to the point it is today.
Right. I think a lot of what y'all were hinting on is, what promise are you making to people as a personal brand, as an organization? And so, when Dania goes and follows the actual designer of the clothing brand that she's shopping for, to me, that is to find out what's the promise, what are her core values as to why she created that business. And it gives you a little bit of a better window, jump in here if I'm wrong, Dania, too. But I think that's what some of what our actions are, is to see if they actually align with what this company is just saying. Right. And, one client that we have, they're in used car sales, and I love them, but I think from a local business perspective, one client who does this really well that we have is Autoline. And so I just think from the top down, they have a really cohesive reputation. The messaging that they put out there, which is, all about laid back, stress-free car buying. I think from where they put the dealership to how they process your order, to what the vibe is when you walk onto the lot, to what the design of the lot is. I think that they've done a really great job of that. And a lot of that stems, like, the owner is a laid back type of guy, right? He's extremely smart about car buying, but that's his vibe and personality, and he lets that come through in the business that he owns. And, in such, I think a lot of our community here, that really gels with, because, the beach community, it's more of a laid back type of vibe. And I think that gels with them really well. And that's why their customer base has grown and stayed loyal to them too, Well,
I think that also speaks to, I've heard you talk about this before, we've discussed this on a prior episode, like your company culture is going to bleed out into your brand, whether you're doing it on purpose or not. And company culture almost always stems from leadership. So, it's like it can be happening without you controlling it and capitalizing on it, or you can really use that as a strategic advantage. And then I think that's where the mentality of, okay, branding is everything, then comes into play, because it's like, how are we going to look at every aspect of our business and keep it consistent with like the personality and the promises and the expectations that we want to be putting out into the market, and that we want people to think of, when they do see the old traditional definitions of branding, the logo and whatnot, that it invokes some kind of feeling or expectation or just understanding of like, oh, I know that company.
Right. No, that's a good, that's a good point. Like, you have to be true to what you can actually execute on, basically. So.
That reminds me, with the company culture coming out, reminds me of Chick-fil-A. I feel like they're the perfect example of having amazing customer service all the time. And one day I finally met someone who's worked there before, and I was like, okay, tell me the secret. Why is everyone so nice and amazing, even though it's like minimum wage? I've never seen that any other fast food restaurant. And she's just like, honestly, everyone's just really nice there. The managers are really nice. They train you well. It's just like a nice environment to be in. So everyone's in a good mood. And I was like, oh, okay. I guess you don't need to have, a scary manager yelling at you, so have good customer service. So I think that's a really good example of, treat your employees how you want your brand to appear to the outside.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. Chick-fil-A is like the happy fast food restaurant. Yeah. But then like getting into company values being part of a brand, and that component with Chick-fil-A, like that either makes you more loyal to them or makes you turned off by them.
Yeah, definitely.
But it's okay to be turned like, it's okay if some people are not into you.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's what creates loyal fans. If you're too homogenous, right? Like, people are never, going to become loyalists, I would say. So, one personal story about this, and it's not a pitch, I promise, but I recently went through this. So when I restarted Soud Marketing, so I owned a previous agency, we've kind of spoken about that in prior videos and all. When I restarted Soud Marketing here locally 3 years ago, I sat down and I took perspective of where the current market was. And I wanted to think, what can I consistently execute on? What do we do better? And, I set out to make great marketing accessible. And, there's a lot of different facets of that, but that is my main theme. It trickles down into what we offer in terms of services. So there's some services here that we do not offer because I cannot make it accessible to fit our core values here as a business. So rather than us sort of flounder with it, I just leave it off the table and say, you know, that's not what we specialize in. You know, we specialize in execute. We're bigger, better, faster at these things here than anyone else. And it makes it very clear, I feel like, too. And so, you know, in having that, it makes our promise clear. It makes how we execute clear. And it makes, I feel like our clients appreciate that we absolutely deliver. We could go above and beyond on what we do have rather than trying to fake it till we make it on things that we can't really do that well.
Well, and I think it's like that clarity that creates a brand versus if you're trying to be everything to everybody and you're not willing to either rub some people the wrong way or say no to business, then you're like a wishy-washy brand, because in this day, like you can't be everything to everybody. So your brand has to evoke some kind of response, positive or negative, and you have to be okay with that, because if it's evoking a response, that's better than just like a totally neutral, like, meh, that's where you are homogenized, and then you're not going to create a loyal following because people are just going to, you know, come in and out.
Exactly. Right. You know,
I think from my generation standpoint, people can see through brands really easily when they're trying to come across as like super ethical, or even when an influencer, for example, if there's like a fashion influencer and then they're, you know, doing sponsorships for an energy drink, people are like, don't be a sellout, like this is annoying, and then they get unfollowed by everyone. So I think it's really important in the long run for a brand to always be consistent to their values with their products and services, brand deals, like you guys are saying.
You know, one thing off of that, and I have a note in my outline, but it plays off of what Dania just said, you know, being consistent. My favorite is when we walk into, you know, not pointing any fingers. My favorite is when we walk into a client meeting and I say, what makes you different? And they tell me service, right? But we've been to their website. You can't find the phone number. There's not enough information about how the process works. There's no live chat, you know, like the forms aren't easy to fill out, so on and so forth. And so, you know, with what Dania is saying, be consistent in what you're telling people. So if you're saying it's your service, then what aspect of your service is the actual best? Or go and make the service experience, the intangibles of that, awesome.
Well, I think that's also like businesses understanding that service is just like branding is bigger than it used to be, so is service. So if you're living under the mentality that customer service is when I either have you on the phone or you're standing in front of me, you're not understanding that we are interacting with your business before we ever get to that point. And it's in the digital space. And if something is frustrating, you know, your website isn't loading on my phone, I can't find what I'm looking for, whatever, that falls under like bad customer service. And like, I'm the type of person that if I get annoyed, boom, I'm gone. Like you have lost me as a customer.
That's true. You know, I think more and more people, you know, it used to be, oh, well, it's the younger generation. Like, no, now it's every generation that's alive. Yeah. It's like you have to have speed, you know, in some of these things, and you have to be authentic, right? Like people can really feel it. And so, you know, I think off of creating what your core values are in really being true to that creates authenticity, which then allows you to go in and create a marketing strategy, you know, content development strategy, advertising strategy, which is sort of the next pillar, which is, okay, this is what we're all about. You know, now let's go tell the world what we're all about and how we can execute on this in hopes to migrate them over into customers. And so, you know, discovery is huge for every business, and this holds true to that. So without, you know, putting content in messages out there, you're not going to discover new potential customers to grow your business. And that's where this gets extremely important, this phase here.
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to, I can't remember what we were talking about the other day, but it's like then what your content the content you're putting out or the content that's available has to be now consistent with kind of the brand you're going for. So no matter what industry you're in, if education is part of your branding, your core values, yet we go to your website and there isn't any educational information, then right there's like that mismatch.
Right. You know, so Casey, as a content creator, you have a variety. So you're in personal development, right? Which can mean a lot of different things. But is it your practice to steer your guests towards what the focus and theme of your podcast is? Because you can't have everyone kind of like wildly going on and talking and, you know, just pitching themselves. Like, because you day trade with an audience on their time. You know, that's the currency.
Yes. So yes, I think that, so my whole brand is better understanding your relationship with yourself. And that is just something I'm very passionate about and very curious about and into myself. So naturally in conversations with my guests, I'm going to always bring it back to that. Like, they might be sharing their story or their business, but I'm always going to bring it back to asking them about themselves, which then sheds light on just how we better understand ourselves in general. And I share, you know, similar experiences and whatnot. So could I do a better job of weaving that theme in and making sure it's staying within that realm? Probably, but I think I do a pretty good job with it. And where then I need to go next is, okay, what's then the further education? So I'm bringing these interesting people doing interesting work, and we're having these interesting conversations which will help bring up some insight. Okay, you know, then what? And so that's where I need to look into whether I'm doing follow-up videos or blogs, tying it back into the theme of how this conversation can help you better understand yourself, or if I'm working with the guests more to develop further content, whatever that next step is. Yeah, that's kind of where I am.
Right. No, that's a really good insight for people who are trying to get off exactly what you have built. And so I want to flip it to Dania, because I feel like Dania has really good insight on discovery of like new stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so you do a lot of your discovery on social, either finding it yourself or finding it from your friends.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, that's like, if not the only way I find stuff.
Right.
I mean, I'm really big on trustworthiness, and I really like when people recommend brands to me. So a lot of times it's, you know, word of mouth, or someone sends something to me via social media, or someone recommends something via social media. So I think reputation is really important. And once you have that good reputation, then more people will start recommending you and share you on social media. So it kind of all flows together. But yeah, I mean, I'm scrolling on Instagram and I'm seeing what people are doing, and I'm like, okay, I want to try that. So
now, when you say reputation, okay, this could, in today's world, this could also mean reputation of putting out good content that's consistent, right? So if someone, you know, is doing makeup tutorials, like it's kind of odd if they then flip and throw in like some fitness stuff and all of that. Like, you know, to me, reputation is, let's somewhat stay on point and let's go deeper with our messaging rather than try to go wider.
Yeah, I mean, I think it really depends. I think at first it's really important to stay true to a very specific like makeup or fashion. But I feel like it's important to not cut yourself off. If you know you're growing as a brand, you don't want to make your brand all about just makeup. Maybe make it about beauty. So then you have opportunity to grow into other parts of the market. So I've always been taught that in my marketing class, like when you come up with your mission statement and your brand statement and all that, it needs to obviously have, like you said, consistency, but make it general enough where you can kind of grow into other aspects that are still related.
That's a really good point about, so yeah, if you're going through the exercise of figuring out like what are your values as a company and what is your mission and what is your vision, it's I doubt many of them that it is, you know, to create some kind of makeup. It probably then, or it should tie into a more generalized, like a bigger, higher level theme of empowering women to feel beautiful every day, or, you know, something like that. Like that's where, I don't know, I think that's an interesting loop around of how branding then ties back to those like higher level core values. Cause then that's gonna impact then your content development and like marketing strategy to get that message. And then the product is almost like a byproduct of the bigger point.
Right.
Exactly.
You know,
that's so important, because a lot of times I'll see that and it works really well. But sometimes I'll see the older big brands like Nike, for example. It's my biggest pet peeve. And they, instead of, you know, sticking to their core, which is, you know, empowering people to be strong, just do it, take chances. Instead, they'll like, you know, randomly push a green initiative. And it's just, no one buys it, because then, okay, if you look, there's a bunch of scandals with them, you know, tearing down forests, or, you know, there's a bunch of scandals with their sweatshop. So, you know, I think you can't like expect the audience to just feed into anything you say. You need to really stick to your core mission statement.
I agree. You know, and something that Casey said, you know, where the product and service is almost a byproduct. Today, I want to drive this point home because it's so important. People consume so much content of you and of your service before they actually buy from you. It is so true. And content, information, and education on everything from what shoes to buy to getting, you know, your carpet steam clean, you know, who to use. Information is out there today as a absolute commodity. Anyone can make it. And so if your business is not taking this seriously enough, other people are out there chirping about you and chirping about the type of product service that you have without you bringing a voice into the market as one of the leaders. And so this is so important, right? You know, that part might seem as a scare tactic, you know, but on the opposite end, you know, on something positive, that you can build and lead an audience for so long before they actually buy from you is a good thing, because then they have, you know, drank in, is that the right tense? Drunk in, whatever. So they have sipped in your brand, your values, your content, what you're all about, to a point where they can then become loyalists and know that they align perfectly with what you offer and how you offer it, you know?
Yeah, and I think that you can create like a brand loyalty that can withstand the negativity. So I just thought of an example. So I use DevaCurl hair products. Obviously, I have very curly hair, and I first found out about them years ago, and it was created by a woman who has curls. So she made products specific to women with curls, which is all about keeping the moisture in versus the drying component that creates the bubbles in like a lot of shampoos and stuff. And just when I found those products, and I was like, oh, because curly hair is like a unique thing, and it was just like this, oh, thank you so much, somebody thought to do this. More recently, they've gotten a lot of negative press because there was some famous person, and then I think some class action lawsuit that the products cause your hair to fall out. But I've continued to use them. Like, I have not seen an issue with the product. I still believe in the brand and the company. And so like when those little scandals come up, and I don't know how big the scandal has gotten, but like I didn't think twice about continuing to buy from the brand, because I appreciated the product, and it is then a good product, which obviously is also a key component of like a good brand.
Right. Exactly. You know, that's a good point, right? Because they continue to speak so well, you know, to people with curly hair. You know, you're almost devoted to using their product.
Oh yeah, and I tell every single person that ever comments about my hair, I say DevaCurl product. Like I promote them probably on a daily basis.
That's important, you know, because Again, speaking to a lot of local businesses, it's easier today to reach the right individuals. This is the greatest time in advertising history, I would say, because we can now go directly to the people that we want to talk to. And it might be a couple different groups, right? And so you can take whatever your core message is and then slightly tailor that to men versus women, or moms versus, not a parent yet, or, however it might be. So content strategy, so huge, and using that to build an audience that aligns with what your core values are to then turn them into customers, I would say is the second pillar to building a really strong brand, is utilizing the media that you have before you. Today, it's easier than ever before. So
I would say my favorite, sorry, not to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
My favorite content is user-generated content, because, again, I love brands that are recommended by people.
Mm-hmm.
So if you repost things of people using your product, I feel like that's the best way to show that your products actually work and people like them, and it will probably speed up the purchasing decision.
It's true. An example comes to mind. So there's a big diamond jewelry brand that's only online. It's called James Allen. And so, one of the things that they did is they did a big user generated content push. And so out on YouTube now, if you Google James Allen unboxing, you actually get to see how the ring, right? Because you're buying a, $3,000-$5,000, diamond engagement ring. You actually see how it gets delivered, the packaging, the box, you get to see the guy open it all. And so, that builds trust, because one of the things with luxury goods, especially stuff like that, is, well, how do I, I'm used to going in and getting it and touching it and feeling it and, blah, blah, blah. In here, they've created a way, because they only wanted to be online. So one of the problems that they had to tackle was building trust with getting the product to the consumer. Mm-hmm. And I think that they did that, and then utilizing user-generated content as part of their marketing strategy to further that value was huge.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant, because I think we're at a point with marketing and advertising that we all understand. I just feel like the days of, kind of having this actor do a TV commercial talking about the benefits of your product, your company, like, those are long gone. Mm-hmm. And they're long gone with the internet, because, one, we know that's all scripted and that's an actor. And through social media and the internet, like, we're all so connected that we're going to look to and believe, like, that social proof, you call it, like seeing real people use a product and say nice things about a product or a business over any of the very obvious, like, company advertising.
Exactly. And I think it adds to the transparency too, right? Using real people to make real content, and it doesn't need to be some huge production. That's what I love about social media. Thank the Lord. Like, it doesn't need to be a whole video production on set type of thing. We do it instant now. And so that's so huge. So, we've talked about core values and sort of either putting those down on paper and mentally having that, eke into every aspect of your business. We talked about creating the content as the vehicle to get those core values out into the world so that you could build an audience of potential customers. So now let's say we've convinced enough people. We now have customers and they're using our product and service. This is a pillar of creating a great brand, because what everyone wants to know when they start working with you is, do you deliver on your promise? And so if you have a podcast, does it deliver the information that is promised? If you have a service, does it perform as expected? If you have a product, can I use it as you told me that I could? And so, business owners and content creators really need to think about that. What did I tell people they're going to learn versus what they're actually learning? And are you delivering on that? And, I don't think everyone needs to be a perfect 10 here, right? What I think needs to be a perfect 10 is what you've told people it's going to do versus what it actually does. Does that match up? That needs to be a perfect team. You know,
I agree with that. I think that I'm willing to give people a little bit of flexibility with that if there's still value. So for an example, like especially in the digital marketing space, one of the big tactics a lot of businesses or especially personal brands use is, you know, to sign up for a free webinar or download or put your email and get this whatever. And when I get that information and it's all just like 90% a sales pitch to like the next thing, I am really, really annoyed. Whereas if you give me some value, like if I get some value out of it, maybe not as much as you promised, but something, I'm willing to like forgive you for that because you did give it to me for free and I recognize it's for free. But like that over promise, under deliver, that really, I'm then just like done.
Right. Right. I hear you. That's one of the, so, you know, in, you know, looking introspectively at myself here with our business. So, you know, the core value, I wanted to make great digital marketing accessible to everyone. And so part of that is putting content out to help educate business owners about what they should be doing, which we do, you know, just like this show here and many of the other videos that we have, but then also it deals with the service that we provide. And so, you know, what makes us great is that we're focused on, you know, a few core services here, and we do those really well. And because we do them really well, it allows us to do them faster than what other types of agencies can do. And thus the speed of that allows us to pass on a better price to the customer. Right. And so, you know, that's sort of, you know, showing it boom, boom, boom in line with, you know, why do I say accessibility is our core value? You know, I want every business to have this. And in doing so, we've created a process that allows us to lower our overhead and thus pass the savings on. So you can now get started for less of a cost. And then also you can then go into more different advertising channels with us at a lower cost than with other agencies. And so, you know, that's where, you know, I'm hoping that everyone feels that we're delivering on that, but that's our promise. Right. And so, you know, I think Nike has a promise, right? So if you look, Nike's messaging and what their promise is very different than if you're buying shoes at Target.
Right.
Right. And so I think in other areas, there's an air conditioning company called 24 Hour where, you know, what their core value, what their promise is, you know, I don't think they're promising to be the best, but they'll be there in 24 hours or less.
Right, so that kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier about like you have to have a defined brand and a defined promise. And right. So whatever expectation you're setting, even if it is maybe, you know, a less expensive version or you're going over convenience as opposed to, you know, luxury or whatever that brand is, just stick to it because that's what the customers appreciate. So, you know, if you're we talked about diamonds before. So if you're like a luxury and it's diamond, you're selling diamonds, then it better be a diamond type experience when I walk in the store. If you're selling used cell phones, I'm not going to expect the diamond experience like walking into that store. So I think it is, you know, it's sticking true to the promise and the expectation, and you have to be clear on what that is.
Exactly. You know, and this is where, you know, good marketing goes to die is if you have great campaigns and stuff, good content, but then you can't execute on what the promise within that content says. And so, you know, this is very true. There's, you know, a handful of like Louis Vuitton and Chanel and, you know, those companies, like no one's forcing you to always be great at everything, right? They're ultra luxury, I would say. But then there's other genres that you can go into and that you might be better suited to servicing than trying to fake it as a luxury brand right? Or fake it from a convenience route when really you don't have the systems in place to conveniently talk to your customers, right?
Mhm.
So there's a lot of aspects on product and service delivery that go with the outbound messaging, but it's so vital. I would say that these two pillars are the two most vital to get right.
I would say in terms of delivery, when you do like the 30-day trial and all that, I think a lot of brands are scared to give too much away during those trials or give too much information away in the educational videos, because then they'll think, oh, they'll just go away and do it themselves. But I think that's the wrong attitude to have, because if they're clicking on your video and doing a 30-day trial, it's because they don't want to spend the time to figure it out, and they just want to see if you're a consistent person, if you're trustworthy. So I think it's always important to deliver, like we've been saying, to deliver more than you say you are, and not be afraid that you're giving too much information away or you're giving away your product for free.
Mhm.
Exactly. I mean, it thrills me, to hear someone say, "Oh, we've taken one of your suggestions and it worked." Right. But they did it on their own, because the trust that builds in them listening to me is huge. I would rather have 100 people that have taken, a piece of advice, put it into action and seen that it actually worked, than have 100 million people, see a video that is just fluff, Okay. So product and service. And today, you can make one sale or you can make many sales. And I feel like moving on to the next pillar, this is where support comes into play. And, these two might sort of bleed into each other, but customer support and then follow up too is so huge, because you don't ever want to spend that money to acquire a customer, make that single sale, and then sort of just push them off on their own. After the product or service has been delivered. That's where, allowing them, giving them support with your product or service is huge, because it allows them to take it even further, right? And this applies for everything. A good one is like fitness equipment. I think makeup companies do this really well. I think food companies do this really well, where, they sell products, but then if you go on their YouTube pages, they show you how to use those products. They don't just send you out in a sea all by yourself. They say, hey, why don't you try to use our products in this manner, because it's shown great results in the past.
Yeah, I agree. I think that follow-up support or follow-up strategy, it like reinforces your brand messaging and keeps it consistent and top of mind until your customer needs to purchase again. So like the example I have is this, they're called Clean Machine something. It's all about like plant-based clean fitness products. So they make like a protein powder, and I buy their BCAAs and I put them in my water, and it's a great product. I love it. I get their emails, and I have not unsubscribed, which is a big deal for me because I'm big on subscribing. But I see that they go live on some social channel like once a week, and they're discussing some element of clean-based fitness or whatever. And while I don't ever really fully read it, and I certainly don't tune in, it constantly reinforces that, oh, I love this company and what they stand for. Like, I love what they're pushing and what they're doing, even though I'm not participating. But it keeps me engaged with the brand and continuing to return as a customer.
Right. I do this a lot. Like, I love the support that marketing and advertising personalities give. So, I might have bought a book, and then off of that, they usually have some free section on their website where you can go and get tools or something that aligns with the topic of their book that allows you to help take it into action, right? And so that's actually, I think I find more value in the support than I do most of the time in the actual product and service. So
yeah, I think a really good example is Lululemon. they have really good follow-up. Like once you buy one of their very expensive leggings, you know, you can get it tailored for free, you can get it shortened. And then they have so many classes, yoga classes. Their YouTube channel is amazing with yoga classes. And it's not just half-assed YouTube. It's like they invite the most famous yoga. You were telling me Ronnie's more into yoga than me, but the most famous yogis in the world, and they teach classes, and I go back to those videos all the time whenever I want to practice yoga. And so Lululemon's always the first yoga brand I think of. So next time I'm buying leggings, you know, they pop into my mind.
Right. You're at least going to peruse by the website, see what's new.
Right.
You know, and so the support factor, you know, I think goes a long way towards customer satisfaction, and also helps with some of the follow-up and the ongoing communication needed to keep a consumer engaged with you. Like what Lululemon does, they keep you engaged, right, long after you bought the pants. I like their YouTube channel too. So they have like 4 good videos from Baron Baptiste, he's a big yogi guy that I followed for like 15 years, I think. Wow. I sound really old saying that.
Well, I was just thinking, like, I think Peloton does a really good job with this too. And I don't own a Peloton, but I have a couple friends who do. And I mean, you have to pay for the access to the app, but you know, they've got on there, they do the challenges and they've got all the live classes. And then they also offer these classes that have nothing to do with the Peloton. They're just HIIT workouts, body weight that you can do at home. And so they've taken a really great product, a bike, but then are now, you can tell I'm sure they're eventually going to come out with something else, because they're already just starting to own that fitness space in a lot of people's mind, that Peloton is their go-to for fitness. It's just like Dania's thinking Lululemon when she thinks yoga.
Exactly. You know, someone else my wife, I would consider to be a neighborhood brand. So she really markets herself a lot in Atlantic and Neptune and Jacksonville Beach. So her service, she's a personal trainer, right? But so you show up, you know, she gives a great experience, workout, all that. But then what other aspects can she help with that people have trouble in? And so, you know, one was sleep. So she made an ebook with stretches to do on your bed before you go to sleep to help relax your mind, get your breathing in order, and, you know, get your body stretched out and feeling good. The other is, you know, you could do all the fitness you want. If your diet's not right, you're not going to see those results. And so she can't be in their home cooking for them. So the next best thing, she came out with a cookbook. And so that's her supporting you know, information, product, content, whatever you want to call it, to support her main business, keep them coming back, and to ensure that they're feeling the results that they're paying her for. And that, I mean, she's had that in practice for years, and it's been phenomenal for her.
Well, that kind of speaks to, you've mentioned this before, like it's bigger than if you switch your mindset from like you're selling a customer a product or a service to you're servicing a customer, like who is a whole person and has many needs associated with whatever your product or service is filling. And if you can look at that more from a holistic standpoint, then it opens the doors for all these other ways to like give them value, but also create that loyalty, create that stickiness, stay true to your brand and your values and all of that.
Right. You know, I wish we thought of this first, right? You know, up in core values, but I think everyone needs to ask themselves, who do you wish to serve? Yeah. And then that's your persona, right? That's who you're going after. And all of this, I feel like, becomes a little easier, right? So then how do you personally want to serve them, right? As a business, you know, starts you down what that core value chain is going to be and what the actual tangibles are that you're going to execute on. So that's a huge point, Casey.
Yeah, I really agree with that.
You know, go ahead.
Well, I'm kind of shifting the subject, but I think on the other hand, from the bottom line point of view, it's always cheaper to market to a returning customer than a new customer. So whether that's through, the user-generated content, follow-up emails, etc. I mean, if you're leaving that out, you're wasting a lot of money.
Right. That's a great point. It's less expensive to keep them retained than it is to go find a new one. And that's in all things too. So I'm big on follow-up, businesses that do that. And so, ways to execute on that, like we said, it's either you could do content, you could call them to see if they're satisfied. You could give them additional things that help support the initial product and service that they paid you for. All of those, I think, are very successful, smart ways to keep in touch, right? You have to keep it going. This isn't like you could do it one time. A lot of times we loop back and we repurchase the product or service like 1 year or 2 years later. And so, you're still loyal. It's not something that you buy, on a monthly basis or consume on a monthly basis. I want to ask Casey this because we haven't hinted on content creators in support yet, but I think support is vital for them. How do you think a content creator or personal brand can help support their audience aside from just the podcast or the video cast that they're giving?
So that's where I think it gets into a lot of people, especially in my space, then have a book that is available, an ebook, an email course, a video course, one-on-one coaching. It's some kind of other element to kind of continue down whatever their niche, like within personal development, is. And that's I don't have any of that yet, but that's where I think kind of the next step is. And to that same point that Dania just made, because it's like you want to be able to go further with your customers, and they're going to continue to evolve. So you have to have services, products, offerings, whatever it is, to like evolve along with them, or allow them to go deeper into one specific subject matter or whatever it is. And so I think for personal brands, it comes down to a lot of that courses or coaching. And that's where I think it then becomes so important that you're actually delivering value. And because if you have a customer or a client or whatever pay for a course and they haven't gotten any value out of it, like, you kiss that customer goodbye.
They're not coming back.
Not to mention they'll probably post online about how unhappy they are and don't buy from this person. So
oh, for sure. There was so I don't know if you guys are familiar with Jay Shetty. So he's big, or I think he's still big in the personal development, spiritual development space. He's got this great accent, and he had this incredible story of like he used to be like a monk, and he's like this young guy. And I used to follow all his stuff and listen to his podcast, and I was a big fan. And then somebody made this video that started to go viral around social media. I had several people send it to me, and it was all of these like proof of him just stealing other people's content, just repurposing it, like, word for word stuff that he said, that then they're showing posts from like other people who are just smaller known names in like the personal development space. And I was so appalled by that. I immediately unsubscribed from his podcast, and like I didn't even do the due diligence I probably should have to be like, okay, is this legit? The video just looked legit enough for me that I was then just done.
So this is the guy, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can tell he's gone really mainstream here. Not that that's a bad thing, but interesting. Okay.
Yeah, that's a big thing now. Cancel culture. Have you guys heard of that? Yeah. I mean, it's pretty controversial if you support it or not, but yeah, you have to be really careful about what you post and do online if you're a personal brand or any brand. Especially nowadays. So it can be a scary thing, but I don't know, if you're staying true to yourself and staying true to the values you're saying you are, then it shouldn't really be a problem.
Yeah, or just giving credit where credit is due. That's all I think people ask for in the social media space. If you're gonna reuse someone else's content, just acknowledge that it was theirs.
Right. Mm-hmm. You know, one thing too, I kind of want to, maybe start to end on this, but the course industry is in the billions now, where people consuming online courses, and there's now masterclass and more mainstream course brands, I would say. And so one thing that I find interesting is that they used to be very rudimentary, but I think that they're actually going to be going into more personalized personal service because of what you just talked about there. And some of the stuff that we previously discussed is that the format of it doesn't lend itself to naturally be very useful, right? And so I'm starting to see a few people do this personal onboarding to get you into the course, to make sure that you use it, to ensure that you have a great experience. And so that goes into support, retention, right? And then also having a team that calls, even if the course is like $99, right? Have a team that calls and ensure that people that are taking that course are using it properly. Do they have questions? And is there a way that you can help them out over the phone, get more value out of it? I want to bring that up, because I don't think course creation is going anywhere anytime soon. I think it's going to continue to scale. Because I feel like it really fits into that micro learning format, but I think that's also evolving faster than probably any other industry too. One, because it's easy for it to evolve. It just sort of, it's not a new concept, but the way that it's delivered is still fairly new.
Well, yeah, and especially, we're still in the days of COVID. And so who knows when we'll get back to a point where people are doing in-person retreats or conferences or meetings or seminars or whatever. So a lot of people, I think, very quickly shifted to online courses out of necessity. 100%.
Yeah. I just signed up for one. It's not a course, but I'm doing an online conference next week. And so nice. It's on Local Search. So it's great. They have all the same speakers, only now instead of having to spend thousands of dollars to attend it, it's free. So
it's free.
Yeah, so it's going to be piped right in, and it's put on by a company that sells a local SEO product, so a tool that local SEOs can use. So, all right. So, anything else from anyone?
No, I think we hit everything.
So do I. There's a lot of good nuggets in here. I hope you all watching this have got a lot of information from it. Please let us know in the comments below. And as always, we will be back every Friday at 10 a.m. with an awesome long form video, typically educational about business and marketing. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.